I feel like I've been bruised and battered by a million different scenes of skydiving and superhero flying through space, like this is a cartoon. It is a cartoon. And then at the last moment, here's a parody of it. What is the least dangerous game? Well, clearly it's the opposite of the most dangerous game, which is hunting humans, or, in this case, hunting sentient creatures. You see, hunting a living thing that is qualifying as a person is much harder than hunting just some random animal. You know, the will to survive, tactics. You get the picture. This is the least dangerous game. It is the second episode of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3. And this one, for me, at least, rewarded repeat viewings. I watched this 3 times, and every time I watched it, I liked it a little bit more than the previous time. When I first watched it, I didn't really like it at all. And then I liked it a little more, and then a little more. I still don't love it, but it's far from bad. It wraps up in a neat way, and has a solid A-plot, B-plot structure. It doesn't break a lot of rules, but then again, it doesn't really push the envelope. But, like I indicated in my previous review, what are we really looking for from Lower Decks? I'm just looking for a good time. So, without further ado, let's see if we had a good time with Star Trek Lower Decks, the least dangerous game. Well, like I said, we have a plot structure that begins with our characters together. Lovely. We're a big family. Diverge, A-plot, B-plot. Come back, rising action. Resolve the tension. Back together at the end. Our A-plot and B-plot don't really intersect. That's not super important. As long as we have a bow on top and end up back where we started, I'm happy. We're starting off where our characters usually start off, in their own little shuttle area beside the Sequoia. I guess that's their shuttle. I guess they claimed it. The home base of the Lower Deckers. Tendi, Rutherford, Boimler, Mariner are playing what appears to be a Klingon-style Dungeons & Dragons game, complete with a 20-sided die. Voiced by, I believe, the character of Martok, with his voice actor reprising his role. Guess what, guys? You're getting real Klingons here. Yeah, Klingons. You're getting real Klingons again. Hey, you go animated, you get Star Trek. You go live action, you get a bizarre mixed bag soup of 40,000 different writers. And no real Klingons. And everything has to look different. And I don't know why. But we're playing a real Klingon game. We're looking at a real Klingon character on screen. We're looking at Martok himself. How can we go wrong, right? Okay, well, this game is about courage, bravery, honor. Boimler has none. We find out that another character happens to be a Bolian. Not sure why that's important, but they bring it up. Vendome. He has become captain, right under Boimler's nose. Why does Boimler keep failing? Well, we have a discussion, mostly between him and Tendi. Boimler says no a lot. Do you want to go do this? Do you want to go practice this? Do you want to go on this mission here? He says no. Which hit me close to home. I'm a no guy. All my life, I would say no. Do you want to do this? No, I'm scared. No, I'm not confident. No, I'm not brave. So that's how I ended up here. I love being here, but I'm not captain. And I wouldn't want to be. You see, I say no. But Boimler has engineered his entire life to end up in captaincy. So now he has to be bold Boimler. From now on, he's going to say yes to anything, no matter how crazy it is. So that starts our A-plot. Or at least what I feel is the A-plot. Both plots feel equally important, given their gravitas and their screen time. But for now, we're going to follow Boimler. You see, Boimler is saying yes to anything anybody asks him to do now. increasing severity, okay? He plays like that cyber squash game from Deep Space Nine. Remember that Bashir used to play? I think he hurt his shoulder. Maybe you don't remember. You should watch Deep Space Nine. But he plays it, and he plays against Shax, and then Shax ends up sneaking him into a Bajoran dirge where he has to sing really loud and sad because of the sustained scream he heard him when they were playing squash, or whatever that sport is. Very funny. He stands for some kind of painting. He's somebody's muse, I guess you could say. So we're getting more awkward, more difficult. But then what's peak difficulty? That goes into the name of the episode, The Least Dangerous Game. He is the game. He will be hunted. There's a character in the background named Cranch. Very spooky looking character. But not a very unique design. His design is obvious. It's supposed to invoke fear. You'll know it when you see it. I wasn't really scared because I knew that if someone was a significant security threat, they'd never be on the ship. Again, this episode, very predictable. In at least its A-plot. And the previous episode, very predictable. If something is super predictable, sometimes it can be funny, but for me, it wasn't very funny. What I found funny about this episode was the things going on in the background. As with Strange New Worlds, there's a hidden episode inside the episode that would have made a much better episode. It's true here, okay? And you'll see why in a moment. Boimler says yes to being hunted by Cranch. You see Cranch is trying to go to the surface of his planet, but the space lift is down. We don't call it an elevator around here. It's a lift. The orbital lift is no longer functioning, which was the impetus for the Cerritos being here. We're fixing their orbital lift on this planet. Planet not unlike Ryza, which will be significant later. Cranch cannot go down to the surface. His need to hunt is bred into his species. Seen this before. Man, this sounds an awful lot like a million different species. I think this showed up in Deep Space Nine. I think twice. I think it showed up in Voyager a few times. I think it showed up in Enterprise. It's very common to have an alien species that has a need to hunt. Okay? Kind of like a Hyrogen. You know, if you know them, I believe they're from Voyager. Kind of a little different, but you'll get the picture when you see it. People who need to be in combat all the time. A little bit different from a warrior race. This is more practical, more primal, more animalistic. Not to insult them, but Cranch needs to hunt. And Boimler says, yes, boy howdy, I'll be your hunted today. And we're screaming at him, that's a bad idea. I think he's going to kill you. But then again, we know this is a comedy. We know what's coming. We know it's a fake-out. He gets chased all over the ship. Many a Joker had, but at the very end, he comes out egged on by the voice of Martok from his board game. Be brave. Don't let your enemy define you. I am Boimler. I'm not going to be hunted anymore. Cranch hits him with the spear right in the shoulder. It goes through. Is that allowed? I think Cranch could have gotten serious trouble for that. Seriously injuring a crew member. But Boimler agreed, if that's something you can agree to, by the rules on the starship. His shoulder will never be the same. But it turns out Cranch just wanted a selfie. He had an alien selfie stick. He put out and took a picture of him having catched Boimler. He says, our species, Crow-Sapiens, practice catch and release. There's your least dangerous game. We caught the least dangerous Boimler and did the least dangerous thing to him. However, he was stabbed. Funny? I didn't really think so. Again, it's not about the destination. Maybe with a comedy like this, lighthearted. It's about the journey. It's about the laughs we have along the way. So let's not take it too seriously. Is Boimler any further ahead in his captaincy? Probably not. But there's something to be said for saying yes. I think at the moral core of this episode, it's about agreeing to things. It's about saying yes. It's about looking at your commanding officer and saying, I will do that hard thing. I wish I had done this more in my life. Instead of just saying, I'm not prepared, I'm not confident, just say yes, do the hard thing. When the people better than you aren't there, you're the best guy in the room. A piece of wisdom for you. You're better than the best officer if they're not around, and you agree to do it. You are a tool. Be a tool. Be the first thing your superiors think of when they need something done. You will move up. Boimler has learned that, and him, say, being a stand-in for the audience, we have learned it as well. This is the moral core of this episode. So immediately, we're better than a lot of New Trek episodes because we actually have a thematic nugget to orbit around, okay? We have a question, we have an answer, we have a lesson. Essential to Star Trek, okay? You can get away with an episode here and there that's just a plot-driven battle episode with ships. By the way, I was disappointed visually with this episode, but we'll get into that later. Our A-plot wraps up. What did you learn? What did I learn? What did Boimler learn? That's up to you. But our B-plot is a little bit more involved, a little bit more risky, a little bit more annoying, because it has Mariner. When I first watched this episode, all I could think of was, man, how much better this episode would be without Mariner. Mariner's just there to ruin my day, ruin their day, and possibly ruin the episode. What happens in B-plot? Well, Mariner, you said, is, or they said, I should say, is Ransom's number one, okay? She is the number one's number one. Ransom is her mom now, and Ransom's looking after her despite the weird romantic tension between the two that I can kind of detect. Very strange. But see, remember how I mentioned the orbital lift? They're going to repair the orbital lift. Billups, Rutherford, Mariner, and Ransom. Unfortunately, Tendi fades away into the background. We're going down that path again of the nothings for Rutherford and Tendi. Hopefully, they'll get a little bit more to do. I have this weird feeling that they're going to kill off Rutherford. I don't know why. The poster for this season has an ethereal form of Rutherford in the background, making it look like he's going to transcend his physicality and disappear somehow. If you've seen the motion picture and you could recognize the relationship between the poster for the motion picture and the poster for Lower Decks Season 3. I might be reading too much into that. It could just be a joke, knowing Lower Decks. Your mileage may vary. They're sending the engineers down to the surface to talk to the locals. I don't know why. It's a health and wellness-based culture, not unlike Ryza, where they kiss hello. Boy, that sounds fun to be down. But not for Ransom, and not for Mariner. For some reason, the command staff have to do the repairs. Wildly inappropriate, dumb, almost gets people killed. To satiate Ransom's desire to go hard on Mariner? This episode makes Ransom look pathetic, and it makes Mariner annoying. Okay, we're trying to fix the orbital lift without knowing what we're doing. Mariner decides to take it into her own hands, and to help Billups and Rutherford on the surface, she's, without Ransom's awareness or orders, takes it upon herself to skydive off the orbital lift down to the planet. And if I had a time machine, number one, I would go back and make Star Trek 2009 not happen because of the stupid skydiving stuff we have to do. Nero had that drill or something trying to transplant red matter into the planet, and they did this weird skydiving thing off the top, and then they did it again in Into Darkness, where they were trying to like fly through space in just a spacesuit. And how come since 2009 we have to have characters flying around like superheroes in a suit through space or through the air? Think about it. Think about how many times you've seen that now. I think it's been in 3 this has occurred in 3 Kelvin movies. It's occurred in Discovery. And now it's occurring in Lower Decks. I'm just tired of it. It's like, in Lower Decks, it's presented as a parody. Like, they kind of make fun of it. And I get that. But at the same time, it's like if I've been abused my entire life by dogs, say just something random, it wouldn't then be funny to spook me by dressing up as a dog and then saying, no, it's just a joke. That wouldn't be funny. It's not funny now. I feel like I've been bruised and battered by a million different scenes of skydiving and superhero flying through space. Like this is a cartoon. It is a cartoon. And then at the last moment, here's a parody of it. It just doesn't sit well. I didn't like seeing it. It would have been more funny if they didn't show it. Like, Mariner jumped off the orbital lift, and then it immediately cut to her trying to come back after Ransom told her that we're going down the surface anyway. Just a snap cut, and then Mariner is tired out and sweating, and I can't believe I just did that for no reason. That would have been way funnier to me, but instead we have to watch it, and I just had my freaking Vietnam flashbacks of trying to watch Star Trek Into Darkness, Discovery, Beyond, 2009. This is too much for me, okay? I'm too mentally abused for that right now. I just need things to be okay now. I don't need any more skydiving. I don't need people wearing suits and flying around. Okay? Okay, put them in a little chair or something, like they did in Star Trek The Motion Picture. Spock got in a suit, but he got in a little chair, booster pack thing, and then launched forward. And there was some real stakes to that. Like, it was scary, because they knew there was no way to really control what he was doing in space, so he just went perfectly forward. Like, there was some pomp and circumstance to it in Star Trek The Motion Picture. Like, I was scared when it happened. Now I just know nobody's going to die because everybody flies around like a superhero. Mariner's no different. He comes from the school of Michael Burnham and Kelvin Timeline movies with regards to how to fly through space in a suit. Yeah, okay. Whatever. Of course, nothing compares to the stupidity of the Red Angel suit in Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Sorry to go off on a tangent again, but Ransom phones in, hey, listen, Billups and Rutherford, they're having a problem on the surface, Mariner. We're going to have to skydive down anyway. So Mariner has to get back on the lift, go all the way back up, and then do it again, and then promptly fall asleep while skydiving, saved by her parachute. Haha, funny. But what was going on the surface? Remember how I said there was a cool secret episode occurring inside this episode? Everything looks good on the surface. It looks like a fun TNG romp through Ryza, but it quickly turns into a spooky horror movie TOS nightmare. As Rutherford and Billups enter some kind of temple without showing their belly button, triggering the people of this planet to go on a murderous rampage and sacrifice them to a living volcano. Things are going really wrong down here, and we see it from the point of view of their pad shaking around, and it was just so funny to me seeing this happen. The shaky cam footage of Starfleet people being shoved into a volcano and then asking for help, and all Ransom can say is, "Speak from your diaphragm." Highlighting the difference between the engineering division and the command division. It couldn't be more clear. It's really funny how that worked out, but it's a shame we had to do it by making Ransom look so stupid to engineer, quote-unquote, this entire mess. Just as Billups and Rutherford are being sacrificed to Morgo, the volcano, complete with telepathic baby and sentient computer leader. So TOS. So fun. Ransom saves the day in the most TOS act I've ever seen in my entire life. He saves the day at the last moment, possibly redeeming him, if you would allow that, by ripping his shirt off to show his physique being so amazing, because this is a culture based on physique, wellness, and physical aptitude. Just showing his huge ripped body was enough to trick the telepathic baby into saying, "Starfleet, you are wise. We will hear you." And then he explains, "We're not so different. You see, we're kind of the same, really." And then it just kind of cuts off because we know he's just going to give the rousing Starfleet speech. So good. So funny. So stupid. But it so perfectly encapsulates how a plot goes from TNG to TOS, and the characters start not knowing what to do because they're not used to being in TOS. It's so funny. It's so meta. It's meta when you realize it. But that plot with Morgo on the volcano, that should have been the episode. It should have been Billups and Rutherford on this adventure. Give Rutherford something to do. Hell, give Tendi something to do. Who is Tendi as a character? Can you explain it? Who's Rutherford as a character? Can you explain that? Did you know that Rutherford has a prosthetic eye made by Vulcans that originally allowed him certain abilities and allowed him to access Vulcan logic? What happened to that? That was cool. Something unique, but he's just turned into character man. He's become normal. Nobody could describe Rutherford or Tendi. They can describe Boimler and Mariner because they're caricatures of their own character archetype. For better or for worse. In Mariner's case, I think it's worse. Although it's kind of nasty how Boimler gets to be the butt of every joke. It would be funny to see Tendi being the butt of a joke, or Rutherford, or having them doing something heroic. Heroism. We need lots of it. Although this is a comedy, so... You know, our episode ends back where it began. We saved Billups and Rutherford from Morgo, the volcano. Boimler and Mariner, Tendi and Rutherford are back where they started, playing that Klingon board game. We're wrapping it up. We're wrapping it up with a bow tie, a cherry on top, the frosting on the cake. It ends where it started. And that's really the best thing we can ask for, you know. Star Trek for a while has been getting complicated A-only plots, or complicated ABCD plots, or emotional roller coaster, action-driven set-piece plots. It's refreshing to go back to normal. This is the first normal-feeling episode of Star Trek in a while. A-plot, B-plot, we end up back where we started. Who can really complain? You know? Sure, the skydiving scene sucked. But the emotion is there. The theme is there. We had the return of a real Klingon in Martok. We had a classic TNG-like planet similar to Ryza. Orbital lift. Anybody? Who was the big winner? Who was the big loser? Ransom came out looking kind of stupid. Even if they did try to redeem him at the end. Mariner got nowhere fundamentally. She's still complaining about Ransom. I understand the commander's need to push ensigns to see what they're capable of. I've been victim of it and guilty of doing it to others myself. You put your subordinates in strange situations intentionally when you know it's safe. We want to fail down here so we don't fail up there. Okay? You gotta be a little bit of a hard ass. You gotta shock them. You gotta give them something strange. Something they don't expect. How do they react? This is important, and I need to know it when the chips are down on the table and somebody could die. Ransom, in this case, was trying to do it with Mariner. They tried to fix the orbital lift with command staff. Big mistake. And they almost got 2 engineers killed. Am I judging it too harshly? Should I judge just like a simple comedy cartoon? Is it okay to say Star Trek is just anything? Don't worry about it, it's X. Don't worry about it, it's Y. It's not so serious, turn your brain off. A slippery slope, isn't it? With that being said, this episode, no real interesting soundscape. I didn't hear the return of any classic themes. Visuals, like I mentioned before, no cool new ships. The volcano looked cool, I guess. Cringe. Boring design. Boring character. Involved in a boring plot. I didn't really like it. Thematically, pretty good. Learning to say yes to new challenges, you know. Learning to trust your commanding officer. Although, that theme stands against itself here. Because in this case, Ransom was mistaken. So I'm going to call it a thematic 0. Good, and then bad, So it recalibrates back to 0. We're just kind of flatlining with Ransom. But with Boimler, we learn something. The episode is very take it or leave it. It doesn't seem like it has a gigantic impact on anything that came after or before. And like I said, I didn't like it at first. At first I was thinking 4. But then I watched it again with fresh eyes. I think it's worse than the first episode of this season, but not by much. So I'm going to have to give this episode a 5.5. It's better than nothing. It annoyed me a little bit, but in the end, it didn't really hurt me. It didn't really damage anything, but it could have been a lot better. There was a nugget of a great episode in the background with their engineer characters, Billups and Rutherford. Sadly, a missed opportunity. That's Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game. So what do you think? Was this episode dangerous, not dangerous, funny, not funny, scary, not scary? Was Boimler indeed the least dangerous game? I think the characters on the planet were playing a dangerous game. They almost died. Here's to hoping for more Tendi and Rutherford in the next episode. Is it too much to ask? I'm Lieutenant Merrick, and I'll see you when I see you.